Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar series, Literacy as Opportunity. My name is Laura Almazara, and I'm on the literacy team here at Amplify. We're so excited to have you here with us today as we hear from educators about building an impactful biliteracy education program. I have a few notes to share before we get started. We are recording today's webinar, and we're going to email out the link to the recording after, probably on Saturday or Sunday, for you to rewatch and share with others as you'd like. And everyone here with us today is going to get a certificate of attendance via email. Throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, please pop them in the Q&A and we'll try to get to them at the end. And we welcome any and all comments in the chat. So to get started, why don't we hear from where you all are joining us from today? Oh, we have someone from Queen Creek. I live in Tempe. Hi, neighbor. That's really exciting.
Oh, Louisiana. Yay. I'm in New Orleans. Hi, Julie.
I've got some great representation from throughout the US. Hopefully we'll get a couple international folks as well.
Utah, Laura.
Excellent.
And so,
Peru, wonderful. Bienvenidos.
Good job, Laura.
Thank you. And just a quick note, we have several more webinars scheduled in this series. So if you haven't already signed up for more, please do. We also have quite a few that have already taken place and are available on demand, including another biliteracy panel that took place last week. Over the next few weeks, we're going to be hosting sessions about supporting students with dyslexia, why knowledge building remains important in middle school, and the importance of language screening. To find out about the other webinars in the series and watch those past recordings, visit amplify.com/literacy-is-opportunity-series. And thank you all for joining us today. We're so excited to have biliteracy specialist Ana Torres and Alestra Flores Menendez here with us today leading the panel. And we have a very special welcome to our educators. With us today are 3 educators from Hillsborough County Public Schools in Florida. I want to say welcome to Stephanie Kraft, who is the Biliteracy District Coordinator, Veronica Schmidt-Gomez, the Dual Language Immersion Program District Resource Teacher, and Melissa Morgao, the World Languages Supervisor for K-12 and Project Director for the Bridge to Biliteracy Academic Services. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Laura. We are so excited to be here. My name is Ana Torres, and I am, coming to you from New Orleans, Louisiana. So if there's any Louisiana folks on the call, happy to have you. I noticed too, we have some people from Taiwan, Alestra. This is going to be an exciting webinar. And so I've been in education for about 25 years, and the biliteracy space is the space that is my happy place. I've been a bilingual dual language teacher, instructional coach, and now I'm so excited to actually continue my biliteracy advocacy journey here with Amplify as a biliteracy specialist. So that is me, and I'm going to let my esteemed colleague and amiga, comadre, introduce herself as well. Alestra, you're on.
thank you, Ana, my colega comadre. I'm so happy to be here with everyone today and the wonderful folk at Hillsborough. We're going to have a great conversation. Buenas tardes for those of you that are joining us on the Eastern Seaboard, and for those of you coming from the West, buenos dias. So amazing to see folks are coming internationally as well. It's going to be a great conversation. I'm Alestra Flores Menendez. I started as a dual immersion teacher myself in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is where I am native to. I am a biliteracy specialist here at Amplify. I've been an instructional coach and a curriculum developer, but I'm just really excited for us to have this conversation today about biliteracy. So I'm going to go ahead and just get us started. We know and we welcome all of you to come and kind of share your experience, but being multilingual, I'll call it multilingual because many of our students and many of our educators here on the call speak more than 2 languages. We know this unlocks opportunities for our students. Our world is becoming increasingly connected, and we know, the U.S. shares geographic proximity with Latin America, so this makes it an advantage to be bilingual in Spanish as well as in English. And today, did you know this, that Spanish is the second most prominent language spoken in the United States as well as the world. So just think about that for a moment, in the world, Spanish being the second most spoken language. We also know from research that in addition to the social benefits of being bilingual or multilingual, being multilingual also comes with cognitive benefits as well for our students, for ourselves. So today, our panel from Hillsborough is going to be sharing with us how they're leveraging research-based biliteracy curricula to accelerate their students' literacy development. And we're also going to be talking today about, what you can do to really start building an impactful biliteracy program in your school or in your district. So I'm going to get us started, just a little bit, some background about us here at Amplify. All of our literacy programs are built on the bedrock of the science of reading. So we know that to ensure that students receive instruction that they need to become biliterate requires a comprehensive system of interacting parts that function together. At the heart of this, we have assessment. Now, assessment gives us a clear understanding of our students' assets as well as their needs so that we can respond to these in our Tier 1 instruction. Also, we want to make sure that we meet our students where they are at in their literacy development. So adaptive, personalized learning can provide these opportunities for independent, targeted practice. And to support our students who may need Tier 2 or Tier 3 intervention, we want to use data-driven instruction to really bolster their skills. For our emergent bilinguals, we know that cross-linguistic transfer is absolutely essential for our biliteracy development. I'm going to pause for just a moment because that term may be unfamiliar to some folks. Some folks call this bridging. I've also heard translanguaging, but really where we're helping these students to bridge literacy development in Spanish and English. We know students need to build metalinguistic awareness. What are the similarities and differences between the two languages they're developing? And we know this requires them to be both comprehenders and producers of those languages, which is why, ORCE is such a powerful vehicle to develop these skills. Now, we're talking today a lot about Spanish and English because those are the programs that we have here in Amplify. We have a core Spanish language arts and English language arts curriculum, as well as assessment and intervention. However, if you are coming from a context, I saw folks on the call from other places that may have other language programs. This visual that you see before you applies to any alphabetic language. So I will just put that out there. Now, what I'd like to do is share with you, we have some guiding principles here at Amplify, and I'm going to go ahead and drop these principles in the chat right now so that you can have a look at them. These are, the principles are in English and in Spanish, so whatever is most comfortable for you, you can kind of take a preview of these biliteracy principles that we have here. But we want to let the experts kind of talk to you a little bit about them. So I'm going to go ahead and let the experts speak about our principles.
Bilingualism is an asset.
Bilingualism is a cognitive strength.
El conocimiento de un segundo idioma
Viene de la construcción del primer idioma. Foundational skills, vocabulary, and knowledge are important.
Todos se transfieren a otro idioma a través de instrucciones explícitas.
All language development es crítico. Universal screening in Spanish and English is necessary.
Debemos honrar el idioma del hogar,
La cultura y las experiencias
comunitaria de los estudiantes.
Wasn't it great to hear from the true biliteracy experts, right? Our students, to really see them in action. That's actually, I get tingled every time I show the video, and I've seen it millions of times, but it's exciting to see kind of the fruit of what biliteracy really is. And what you've heard, those were our true biliteracy experts. So as you see on the screen, and Alestra kind of segued into this, these are the 7 biliteracy principles that guide our biliteracy work here at Amplify. So as you're looking at them, and there are 7, number 1, bilingualism is an asset and a cognitive strength. And number 7, honoring that home language, culture, and community. Those are the 2 that really resonate with me and guide the work that I continue to do in this biliteracy space, in this educational community, including Amplify. So, and I'm excited again, let me reintroduce Veronica and Stephanie, and thank you, Melissa, for joining this panel. We are so excited to have you and to have you be part of this first ever Biliteracy Educational Roundtable. Alestra and I are super excited that this is our first panel for Biliteracy here at Amplify, and super excited to have all three of you here. So with that said, and we're talking about these biliteracy principles, you've heard from our biliteracy experts. What would you say? What are the principles that align with what is happening in your district with your roles? So feel free, as I'm asking these questions, to kind of reintroduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about who you are and your role. So Veronica, because you and I are kindred spirits, we got on this call and we just got excited. Veronica,
Yes.
Así que vámonos, échale ganas. I'm going to start with you, Veronica, and ask you the question of which one of these biliteracy principles aligns with the goals for your district and your school.
So Anna, you know how you pick two? I'm gonna have to pick more than one, and that's just because we're very blessed in Hillsborough County to have a superintendent who genuinely supports our efforts in biliteracy and bilingualism and dual language. So to be honest with you, my supervisor and I, Melissa, we just actually had a meeting with the Early Literacy Coalition and their task force, because we really want to start even in preschool. So if I was to answer your question, it's a combination of like 2, 4, 5. And the reason I say that, and I think 5, I would say really is something big for me, is this idea of a universal screener could provide, if it's not the student's actual home language, erroneous and misinformation. And then what ends up happening is that they're going to use that data to inform instruction that's not accurate to begin with, and which is part of the reason why we love the idea and are bringing on the M-Class Lectura, is because we needed a screener that was going to be accurate. And so we just recently had a conversation, and I don't know, Melissa could speak to this more, but we just recently had a conversation about adding other languages, because a universal screener technically really isn't universal in English, that is, right?
Well, Veronica, thank you for sharing that. And, you know, I would be remiss without acknowledging the fact that I didn't model that well for you. The question was, give me one, and I gave you 2, because all of these principles, right? No, Veronica, I modeled it incorrectly. All of these principles are super important, right? And to kind of have you pick one was probably tough. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you. And we will talk a little bit more about your journey with M-Class as we, you know, kind of have further discussion. And so, Melissa, this would be a good segue. It looks like we're popcorning to you, Melissa, to kind of talk to us a little bit about, are there other biliteracy principles, or even echoing Veronica's comments about that?
Well, she's right. So we are, you know, shaking the house a little bit upside down, which sometimes that's kind of the expectation of trailblazers, right? And follow some of the good work that's already been done. I think that's why this is such a great opportunity for us to collaborate, so that we can really help validate some of the research and the numerous research that has been done. So what resonated with me, I followed instructions, Veronica, and I selected bilingualism as an asset and a cognitive strength. And I, you know, my favorite saying is, you know, language is the students have a language barrier. They don't have an intellectual barrier. Nice. And many times, because a student comes in as a novice, as an emergent learner, and a monolingual in their language, whatever that may be, Spanish or what have you, then, you know, that is subconsciously or consciously, I'm not sure, it depends on the case, interpreted as a lack of ability, of cognitive ability. And so what we've worked really hard with, and that's what we want to now bring it down to the foundation. That early learning is so important. We all know, we're educators, we're in education. We know that all the good stuff happens, at the beginning, and we don't want to triage. We don't want to put band-aids and the gaps keep getting bigger and bigger. We want to, be proactive and say, is there a way that we can approach this language learning to where there not only aren't there gaps, we're eliminating gaps, which is what we're doing with our dual language program, but we're also building self-confidence and letting students know that what they bring to the table is valuable. They have a lot of information. They have an immense amount of assets to bring, linguistics tools that shouldn't be disregarded and or suppressed, even worse, but rather let's utilize that and maximize that for language growth and cultural growth. So that is really what our passion has been. We do realize that sometimes it sounds a little bit counterintuitive, and especially, to be honest, at first I found it amusing, and I get it, right? Even sometimes to our Spanish speaking parents. So when we're trying to convince our parents and tell them what a great opportunity it would be for their students to be in a dual language classroom, here's what the first thing that goes to their mind. I had a bad experience. I struggled not knowing the language. I want my child to learn English. Why would I want them to learn Spanish? They already know Spanish. Without realizing, and this is where the education piece comes in, that cross transfer, the metalinguistic awareness that comes, and then you start explaining, and that they actually not only strengthen their second language, but they don't lose their first language, and it's a win-win, right? So that's part of the thing, because, and I'll just end it by saying one of the things that we have really been, hyper-focused almost on is making sure that our students feel valued because they bring a lot to the table. And up to this point, it's been, in our country, has been a lot of deficit-based, instead of asset-based. Not only their culture, not only their values, their morals, but their language skills. So that's why I say, for me, bilingualism is an asset and a cognitive strength.
So number one, huh, Melissa? Well,
That's it.
can I say something that resonated with me, and Stephanie, you will have your time. Stephanie's patiently waiting for her turn. Is when we are in this space, it is more than just our students, right? It is the teachers and
Right.
it is the parents, right? And so when what resonated with me, what you said, Melissa, I remember coming to this country when I was 6, and really what brought me into this space is my mom. Because it was a deficit-based time. This was, late 70s. Yes, I look good with my age, everyone. I was not seen as an asset, and neither was my mother. She wanted me to continue to honor my home language while I was learning English. And so my advocacy is also for parents as well. And so I'm glad that you brought that also to this conversation of we've got to be educating our parents of the value of this as well.
Right. So we see it as a stool. We see there's legs to this stool. And if one of the legs is missing, that stool will fall. So we don't just concentrate on the student. Clearly, they are our main focus, of course, but we also are cognizant with the fact that, pardon the cliche, that it takes a village. We know that the teacher needs to understand and not embrace, but own that idea of what that means and have the strategies. The tools. That's another thing. We put a lot on teachers, but then we expect them to do, and we don't equip them with the tools. Same with parents. Right. Well, we want them to be reading at home. Well, how, they're not teachers. What are we doing to equip them at home so that they can be, because we really need all these pieces together. So thank you for acknowledging that.
No, thank you, Melissa. And all of those pieces, kind of complete the puzzle. And so, Stephanie, you have been patiently waiting your turn, which means you've had a lot of time to look at all 7, right? And so, Stephanie, you have the floor.
Thank you for having me, and not only me, our whole team here. I want to start out by complimenting the same selection as Melissa. Bilingualism is an asset and a cognitive strength. I'm actually a parent of bilingual learners, and in my bilingual journey as well. And I'm so thankful for my position and my boss and my team who see the both sides of, you know, our Spanish learning English and our English speaking students learning Spanish, and really teaching our entire community about bilingualism. It's something that our English speaking community, that's not common, is to be bilingual in an English speaking community. So really, when we have our entire community embrace bilingualism as an asset, and we're enriching our English speaking students at the same time, it's really bridging together our community. So that's something that I know Melissa artfully did with our team, and bringing in multiple perspectives. And so I'm super excited to be able to coordinate a program that offers bilingualism to students that wouldn't have access to that. So not only are we here serving our ELL students, our English language students, but really at the end of the day, we get the opportunity to serve all language learners in our dual language, which is our ELL, you know, helping our ELLs and our focus of our ELLs. And then with our innovative grant of the Bridge to Biliteracy, which is really bringing in our English speaking community and teaching empathy through language, teaching multiple cultures through language, and really showing the asset of bilingualism. And we're bringing more people on board with us, which is at the end of the day going to create that empathy. So I agree with number one. I don't know if I said number one, but I agree with number one. And of course, as I was going through, I was like, number 4 resonates with me. I could pick a bunch of these, of course, because we have to get our students speaking to each other and practicing, but I'm going to stick with number 1 as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Veronica and Stephanie and Melissa, for sharing your thoughts on that first question. And so now I'm going to segue over to my esteemed colleague, Alestra, and we're going to continue this really awesome conversation.
So I just appreciate the multiple perspectives that everyone provided. I think it's wonderful that we have, Stephanie here to kind of share, like, what is that from, the native English speaker learning Spanish. We want to be just as supportive with those students as we do, and honoring that home language as well, and providing those bridges and engaging those parents. How do we do that when my child might be learning a language that I'm also very early on in understanding myself? So I just appreciate that we've got these multiple perspectives today with us. So thank you. I want to shift us into you sharing a little bit about your journey at your district as you're looking towards research-based curricula, tools that you can use to support your students in their literacy journey. So I'm going to actually let folks kind of raise their hand who would like to sort of go first to talk a little bit, because maybe we can get a little bit of background on, where Hillsborough is right now with your programs, kind of how that got started, and sort of, some of the storytelling behind, what that journey's been like.
Go for it, Melissa.
Uh-oh, someone got voluntold.
Yes, so I'm sorry. I thought you wanted to open it up, or did you want me to speak to that?
I think the decision has been made that you would be a great person to talk just a little bit about, Hillsborough and sort of, how your process has been to come to where you are right now with respect to biliteracy.
So I will just say that it is not an easy track, but it is a well-worked track. So it's more like, what is that? It's the journey, right? And you set your goals, but it's really a constant education and advocacy, because you have to think that for the good part of really historically, educating second language learners has looked very different. And so but if you look at it, it's really not that hard to convince, although it does take a little bit of trekking, because we have not. The reality of statistics don't lie, and data is always so helpful because data is data, and it is what it is, right? It's not anecdotal, it's data. And the data proves over and over again that there is no way that you can close the achievement gap, and that's what a dual language does, other than in a bilingual, in a true program that is run with fidelity. So if the methods that had been, are traditional in a deficit-based language program worked, we wouldn't be here, because we would say, well, we closed the gap, it works. I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Well, we know that it's broken. I'm not saying that there aren't good features of it, but we know that that it's a work in progress. And as we discover new things, then we need to be able to use that repertoire. Now, how does it start? If you want to start a program, how do you do it? We're still working on it. I'll be honest with you. We are now graduating, and Stephanie was a pioneer. She was a grassroots, to launch this program, took a risk. And we are now in our 6th year, and we are graduating our first cohorts, and they have done phenomenal. And we've learned along the way, and we've tweaked. So if I can give some advice, is to be easy on yourself. Know that it's a heavy load. And number one, you can't do it by yourself. That's first and foremost. Find yourself some good cheerleaders, people that believe and understand and are ready to walk the walk with you, and then have a plan. Professional development is huge. We spent the good part of a whole year before we even launched our program is assessing where is the best place, where do we have the demographics, where do we have community support, the administration at the school. They need to be on board, and they need to understand. And it's not just about, oh, well, this is a great program. No, we need them vested. But in order to get them vested, we need to educate them and let them make the decision and understand that this is a good program and it's good for kids. So that initial part, it takes sometimes a fearless leader, a risk taker, because while you have data, national data, I mean, we have decades of data. This isn't a new concept. It may very well be new to that person, or it may sound a little counterintuitive. And so you don't have, now thankfully we have district data. So it makes it easier. But at the beginning, we had to get some really good leaders that were ready to go with us and have them believe in the program. But one thing that we did notice that we didn't pay as much attention as in the beginning, and we have found that really was the missing link, is the parents. The parents are your best advocate. In fact, when, and there have been times when, there might have been mixed opinions about whether we should keep this program or not. And who came out to defend were the parents. The parents are your greatest support. But like anything, they don't come, it's not like, build it and they will come. They are there because they see the quality, the fidelity. We are very careful on our teachers, our selection of teachers. So there's, when everybody says, oh, your dual language program is doing so great, and you've made, their data looks amazing. And I say, it's not a magic wand. It's not a fix-all. It is an amazing program, but it is an amazing program because of the rollout, because of the organization, because of the strategic planning, and because of the people that have been put in place. So that is really, and we'll be glad to help anybody or guide them, because honestly, what we have found, and Stephanie could attest to this, is that the environment, the bilingual environment, specifically the dual language environment, is so helpful. It's not the typical teacher that hoards. No, we are just giving to each other, and hey, look what I've got, and don't go that route because I've got something better. And so I feel like it's this whole community, national and international community of, this is good for kids, let's work together, just like we're doing here.
Exactly, Melissa. And there's 139 people on this call that I'm sure are just right now just standing up and applauding you. Because yes, it is. It's a lovely community to be part of. It, you know, folks really do want to come with their best foot forward and share and learn together. And so I just appreciate you bringing that out, and also appreciate you continue. I'm hearing you coming back to this. There are multiple stakeholders, and we want to be very inclusive, we want to be very transparent, so that, you know, we can work together, because you said it beautifully. It does take a village. It really does.
So I would love to continue on the how we've kind of selected our research-based curriculum. And when you're talking about multiple stakeholders, one thing that Melissa has demonstrated to us, being our leader, is getting our teachers and parents involved in the selection of that. Now, we pilot many programs, and we reach out to different vendors to get pilots of programs, because we want to make sure we've seen it, we've tried it before we buy it, and really put it into place. So we have our teachers involved in that process. We have our parents have say in that process. But I think the real piece behind it is really getting our teachers to pilot out what that might look like in small groups and whole groups, and really use it before we commit to something. And so that's been something that's really been key, is getting our stakeholders a part of that process of, does it work for, we've got a gigantic, we're the 7th largest district in the country. We've got a wide range of students and families that we serve. Does it work for all of our families? Does it really work for all of our students? So I think a lot of time and research goes into, and when I say research, meetings between us, meetings between our teachers, a lot of time goes into selecting and being very selective in our choices to make sure it's the program that fits for our county, and then even the program that fits with the other programs we've selected. We can choose 10 great online platforms for our students, but if they're all the same thing, they're not working together. They're working opposing for each other. So that's something we really focus our stakeholders and coming together as committees to select that. And it's not just a one person selects for the whole. So that's something we really.
And if I may add something, I think one of the things that Melissa really touched upon that I want to kind of add to is, you have to have a vision, and you have to really understand where the end, right? And then that idea of backwards design. So at the very same time, and I remember this because this was the beginning of my journey in dual language. I had been in world languages, but at the very same time that she began the push and the start of the first dual language class, she came to me, and I was teaching at the middle school that received the students eventually, right? She came to me and said, I'm starting this. I need you to get ready for them. So then it was, oh, okay. I happen to have a social sciences certification as well. So we work through social studies to make that happen. And I think to Steph's point, Melissa has done a phenomenal job of selecting the people that she works with, because my background is in secondary and Stephanie's is in elementary and Melissa's in K through 12. And
so here's what she really means. It means that as a leader, you really don't need to know that much, but you want to make sure that the people that you surround yourself do. And I have strategically selected 2 of the best educators, passionate, dedicated, brilliant, creative risk takers in our district. And yes, I will admit that it was a little bit of headhunting going on, but I needed that leadership. I needed those people in place to help me go. So I say that I really, it is not to to make them embarrassed, or, you know, because they know how good they are. But they're that good because, and that's why I selected them. So my message here is, you know, if you want to launch a program and you're thinking, I really do, but, you know, I kind of know about it. I don't know. I mean, I actually did pretty much because I'm a linguist and I've had a lot of years in it, but I still there were some things I didn't know about Duolingo. I'm still learning about it. We all still are. So don't wait until you're an expert. You do your research, understand, make sure that you first are on board and you own it and understand and value what the program can bring. So once you're convinced, you do have to be convinced. Once you're convinced, then you strategically place those people that you know are going to help you do it. Because as good as they say that I am, I'm really not. I am only as good as my weakest link, and I have two of the strongest ones in our district. So that's so important.
It's just like this overwhelming feeling of like professional respect and collaboration and appreciation. And you know, Melissa, I have to say, I had the good fortune of actually coming and working with Stephanie and Veronica, and I was prepared to sort of give a presentation, and it didn't happen that way. What happened was everyone just sort of shared their expertise, asked really thoughtful questions. I learned a ton just from being there with your expert team. So yeah, we have such a wonderful group here, and I hope all of you on the call are, you know, kind of resonating and hearing, you know, that this really, it's not a one person decision to be made. It really takes people coming with multiple perspectives and contributions. And so I actually am going to turn it over to you, Anna, so we can kind of keep this conversation going.
What great conversation, Alestra. And here's what I'm feeling, just hearing you talk, and Veronica's been smiling this entire time, which I'm loving. And Stephanie, I mean, it feels like you're looking up at the box where she is going, wow, look at my colleague. And Melissa, the adoration you're getting from your staff, because you are that fearless leader, right, that has stepped up to the plate. What I'm feeling is beautiful synergy. That's what I'm feeling.
I actually pay them to do that, but other than that, you know.
So now we're going to segue and continue this conversation as we have this beautiful synergy on a virtual call, right, Stephanie, right, Veronica, right, Melissa? Is now we're going to segue into, we talked a little bit about looking at these biliteracy principles and which one aligns. Talked about a little bit about your journey as you're looking at that research piece. But now what we'd like to kind of have you share out, and Veronica, I'm looking at you because you're going to get us started here.
I'm ready.
You are also Amplify product users, right? Yes. And you are M-Class Lectura users, which is our universal screener and dyslexia screener. So talk to us a little bit about how this program that you're currently using, and we hope that you're going to be using more down the road, right?
Yes.
How this using M-Class Lectura, how that has accelerated your literacy development. And I know that, Veronica, you're going to share that you're in your infancy, but I'm excited to hear how you got to this place.
Okay.
Veronica.
So I can tell you that we work very well with our literacy and English language arts department. The executive director, Tracy Bergman, is absolutely amazing. As a matter of fact, she worked in a dual language school in St. Petersburg, Florida. So she has a lot of knowledge with regards to dual language. And so she approached Melissa and shared, we really need some form of a screener that is going to give us more accurate information. And I think more specifically, she was getting frustrated, and this is more to Melissa's point, about the fact that it is a language issue, not an intellectual issue. And that is where that's where it was headed. It was headed, well, I have this expectation of a newcomer coming in, learning English. They're not learning English fast enough. Well, it has to be that they need some specialized supports. Well, yeah, they do, but not the ones you're thinking, right? So what Tracy actually and Andrew brought in was the concept of M-class lectura and dibbles and how they complement one another. And what Stephanie and I'm gonna let Stephanie speak for herself, but one of the things that we absolutely we're jumping for joy was the connection with dual language when it comes to M-class lectura, because the English teacher is just as valuable as the Spanish teacher, right? And so at the same time, what we loved was the suggestions. They were on point. They were specific. It wasn't just, well, you should work on phonics. Well, no, which specific things should we work on? And then it went the next step and said, and here's how. Let me give you ideas on how to actually apply what the child needs. And I think that we often see this, and when we go and visit our schools, where, we'll even have our teachers say, well, the child is struggling in English, but they're doing really fantastic in Spanish. So, obviously we need to give more English. No, that is not the case, And so then, and this is just across the board, you have RTI, MTSS, where you obviously want to provide those systems of support that benefit the student. But again, and I go back to the biliteracy principles, that if I had to choose one, number 5, Melissa, would have been mine. Because I would love to have far more accurate data, right? And I think teachers would love to have far more accurate data. If I'm going to assess a child and then it's going to be wrong, and I develop a plan of action that isn't benefiting the student, I've now wasted my professional time, and I'm not, I haven't made it, it's not beneficial to the child, right? And so when we met with Alestra and she shared the incredible things that M-class lectura can offer, we were ecstatic, because the other piece being that they complement one another. So when you look at the scores from Dibbles and then you look at the scores for M-class lectura, they are going to validate one another. In other words, not one is more important than the other. And I think that that's the biggest piece. And that's something that we have to fight against even now. I mean, that's from the state, from to the district level, to a school level, right? And even to a classroom level. Well, they're going to be assessed in English, or our teacher scores, our evaluations are going to be based off of their English. That doesn't mean that should have more value. If you truly understood the way that language is developed, the development of their native language is equally important, if not more so, than the development of the second language acquisition. So Stephanie and Melissa, if you'd like to add to that.
I'm going to say, I'll go on, and I just want to point out, you just almost verbatim said for the principle number 2. I'm staring at them on my second screen. So I think you also chose that one as well. No, but we were so excited when we got to learn about this program, and we're excited to really put it into practice, and not only for whole group, and to get the great data, the data. Oh my gosh, and I know Veronica's already talked about this, but I want to stress it a little bit more, that the fact that we can see the relationship of a student's knowledge in one language, and then we can go to the other language and we can say, oh, they're having trouble with the sound of the M, just producing the sound of the M. It's not one, or, we're seeing that in both languages. Well, then we can address that together. We can see that. So as the English immersion teacher, it's important for me, and there's a lot of English immersion teachers out there that do not speak Spanish. They do not have the knowledge yet to know what to create those bridges for. And that's something that this program gives to the entire program, that our English immersion teachers, yes, they should be on their bilingual journey, but they might not be there yet. So this program gives them that tool to be able to really work with their Spanish partners, teaching partners, and really make quality instructional decisions where
Right? It's like an embedded RTI.
and that was my next point. She always takes my words. No, I'm just kidding. We really just think the same, I think.
Yes, we
we're
do.
always
We do.
doing it.
Synergy,
But
remember?
that's
Stephanie? It's the
synergy. That's the
There it is.
synergy.
Telling
Yeah.
you.
But what I'm going to say is this is exactly, I saw RTI written all over this. Yes, I see a lot of really good whole group areas, but something that is a missing link in our dual language program currently is RTI. Many times, like Veronica was mentioning, we have a child whose dominant language is Spanish. They've learned Spanish their whole life. They're struggling in English and they say, you know what? They need some English RTI. Not true. That's not true. If you flash an apple at a child and say, apple, but they don't know that shape is an apple. They're looking at you, they have no connections. When you're going through manzana, they can now make a connection to the sound and the shape because they have heard it before. They could go through that entire word and make connections to that shape, that realia that you're showing them.
Great pronunciation.
Realia
Steph.
means nothing if there's no connections. So that's something that I was so excited to bring this for RTI to our teachers and to be able to give them a program that helps, that really helps connect the English teacher and the Spanish teacher, because without one of those teachers, and a lot of times our English teachers are kind of just doing their gen ed thing. And we really want those English teachers to be English immersion teachers and Spanish immersion teachers connected. So
Exactly.
we saw this amazing bridge. Go ahead, Melissa.
Well, I was just going to say, I hope that we have been able to communicate, because it's our way of work, that to apply these principles in everything that we do. So, for example, if one of our goals is to value language and value what the student brings to the table, then we also need to do the same for our stakeholders. So our English teacher is not more important than our Spanish teacher. Our Spanish teacher is not more important than our English teacher. It's valuing the languages the same, giving them the same value because they're equally important, and respecting the fidelity and trusting the program, the system, the way of work, the strategies, the principles, right? And valuing what everyone has a role, an important role. The administrator, the parents, the students, the teachers, the resource staff, even the instructional support and the PD, which is so important. So what as much as we go one way and we talk about maybe a program, all that is great, but everything has to be great, right? And we have to make sure that everybody understands what their role is and how valuable. So we can't make it. We can be great expert team at the district, and we have leadership that doesn't understand the program and maybe makes decisions that's counterproductive. That's one of our legs of our stool is broken. We can have great everything, and then we have parents that aren't educated in what the program principles are. So they have one set of expectations that conflict with what the expectations are of the program. We have an instructional program or a resource or supplement that we it's what's been used in the past. You have to be able to take some risk and say, you know what? These are the needs of our program, and they may or may not be the same as the English program. And this is where, that's why, we're all kind of doing the happy dance when we saw that because we're like, this is what we needed. We know we're doing great things, but we all know that our data will support that. It'll validate that, and it'll streamline to say, where can we do better? And we don't know that if we don't have the correct tools to do so.
Thank you, Melissa.
I do want to applaud our district leadership outside of our world language group, because they are the ones that that they were like, hey, I think we found a program that can help bring dual language and gen ed together. And that sometimes, and I'm sure the 125 participants that are on here feel sometimes like dual language is like a leg outside of, you know, not fitting into all the clothes that everything else is fitting into.
So one last thing I want to say, as you know, we're very passionate and, you know, very hard to get us to stop talking, but I will tell you the reason, and I'm glad Stephanie brought that up. That was something that was brought to us by another content area. So that's another piece that we didn't include, but a very instrumental piece is dual language and bilingual learners. They do not belong to the ELL teacher. They are all content areas. Every single content area is an intricate part of their success. So what does that mean as leaders of these programs? Then we need to make sure that we are leading the charge and we are actively seeking collaboration and educating those content area experts around us, because it truly is, you know, and when you do that, here's the beautiful part of that. It makes your job so much easier because we hadn't found it, but somebody else did. And because they know our work, because they're familiar with our systems, they know our principles, they know the goals of the dual language, they automatically, even not being in dual language, said, hey, this might work for you. So, you know, it's about working smarter, not harder, and really maximizing the resources that are available to you.
Well, thanks for sharing, you know, how things are going with Amplify Lectura and also with Dibbles 8, Veronica, because as you can see now, even though you're in your infancy, using both together really will give you those, you know, give you that data that you need where you can look at students' overall skill. And that's even the language that you will see in the platform and in our program. And so I'm going to segue now to Alestra. I know we may have another question. We are getting close to time as well. I know our last question is about suggestions, which, wow, Melissa, Stephanie, and Veronica, you kind of segued us and gave us lots of information. This, you know, this roundtable discussion could go on and on and on, right? And we can continue discussing that. I'm going to segue over to now Miss Alestra, and in our last little leg piece here in our last 3 minutes here at our roundtable discussion.
Thank you, Anna. And I'm just, you know, I'm thinking of all of the folks here who are on the call who might be in their infancy, you know, in this journey. And so I'm just, you know, what are some of the things that you would want to share out with folks so that their journey can be as impactful as possible? I know that a lot of the suggestions have kind of come up, but if there's sort of like one last thing, even if it's sort of just stamping something you've said earlier, I'd love for everyone just to take a moment to kind of share out what it would be your suggestions. Again, we talk about how collaborative this community is, but what would you suggest to folks just getting started?
I would say my suggestion would be talking about the community. Find a district to lean on. I know that's something we did at the very beginning. We went to other school districts in our state. We walked their classrooms. We saw things that we were like, yes, absolutely. We also saw things that we were like, oh, we might want to stay away from that. So learning the good and the bad, and not really the bad, just things that we want to make sure are run really well. And really then not only just walking their classrooms, but keeping them as a close partner in our journey. I know we currently reach out to all of our partners, and the research doesn't just come from the three of us here in the district. We really look at each of our partners. We've gotten to go and spend time with them and really be a part of their journeys and our journeys as we grow together.
Wonderful. Thank you for that suggestion. Just really, you know, and I love how you continued the partnership even after you sort of had done those initial sort of like, let me get a kind of an idea of what's going on over here, but let's continue to work together and learn from one another. Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. Who wants to go next?
I would 100 or 1000% agree with Stephanie. I think that we continue to learn from our partnerships, and I just sent 2 emails to two of our partners in different districts, asking them, hey, do you have data for this? Or hey, what did you do here? And what do you think about that? And what suggestions do you have? I think another suggestion that I would give you is to, if possible, to attend conferences and make connections through those conferences. For example, we attended a conference, or the NABE conference in Orlando. And at that NABE conference, I attended one of the sessions that was offered by the University of Central Florida. And after that session, I ran to Melissa and I said, you need to go and meet Dr. Joyce Nuda. And they were offering an actual postgraduate dual language certification program. And it was a grant and it was paid completely. And coursework, just like a graduate coursework and everything, but it was specific to dual language. And thankfully, Melissa did run over there, and a lot of our teachers had the opportunity to apply, actually were accepted, and were a part of that. And I will tell you that we continue to have that partnership, even if the grant is no longer available through UCF, but we have those partnerships. We utilize that information, the textbooks that we received. It's just a lot of information, but more specifically, then it opens up even more opportunities. So I can only speak for myself, and I'm not saying this to toot my own horn by any means, but because of my connection at NABE, I made connections through, remember, I was in social sciences, through iCivics. And then I worked with iCivics to start bringing in additional dual language. They had already started, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I in any way, shape, or form had anything to do with that, but because I was in that environment, then I created partnerships with them. And all of that to say that we're making a bigger impact, but we're also learning on how we can better our district. So I would definitely say, please attend conferences and make those connections.
And just my final comment, I just heard this phrase the other day, plug in. I was like, oh my gosh, I love that. If you're new to something, plug in, get a part of the community, and that will really help. And just like what she was saying at the conferences, plug in, be a part of it. Don't just sit on the wall. Don't think you can do it by yourself. Plug in and really make those connections.
Thank you. Thank you, both Veronica and Stephanie. And, Melissa, I mean, you have the floor. You have shared, kind of some suggestions that you have for folks. Is there sort of any last kind of ideas you want to share out?
Personally, I think that we pretty much hit every single area, but I will say that I know it's a lot. It's overwhelming. We are also coming to you with the wealth of information that we did not gain overnight. So it took us years and many, many years, and we're still learning. So if I can say one thing I want to reiterate is be easy on yourself, be forgiving to yourself, but also know that you are not in it alone. I can speak for Veronica and Stephanie in saying that we would not be where we are, and our program would not be where it is. And even our quest to continue to grow, if we did not have the support of those that came before us and helped us. And so we want to be that for others as well. And we are. And for this particular forum, anyone that is watching, we'll be more than glad to share our contact information. It's a community, and that's what helps us. And we want to be able to be that for others as well.
Thank you for that lovely invitation. So you have it there, folks. Go ahead and plug in, plug in with Hillsborough, plug in at conferences, plug in with folks in nearby that are doing this work. I know that Laura wants to go ahead and kind of close us out today. So I
have
think
one last slide, Alestra, but before, as we're closing out, one of the things that we also, and I think the three of you have illustrated this beautifully as far as how to build that effective and connected multi-tiered system, because we are looking at really supporting all of our learners. Specifically looking at our emergent bilingual students. And so how we're doing that at Amplify is we have an effective literacy program, goes beyond the core, right? We're looking at, and Alestra mentioned this in the beginning, and we have a full biliteracy suite, which also includes English, but also looking at our Spanish biliteracy suite, which is its companion, looking at our assessment, as they spoke eloquently about class lectura, right? Also looking at the instruction, we have an instructional Spanish language arts program as well. It's called Caminos. And we also have our intervention piece, which will be launching this fall of 2023, Boost Lectura, which is going to be now that personalized adaptive program that's truly going to complement and complete our suite, and know that they all share Spanish skills progression. So thank you so much for all of you that were on the call, and thank you so much to our panelists. This was an amazing, amazing experience for us. And so Laura, I will turn it over to you to close us out.
And let me take the mic from you and say thank you to you, Anna and Alestra. You led a wonderful discussion. It was very incredible to hear from our educators from the same district, which was just such a treat. Thank you all so much for dedicating the time, and especially to you all who joined us here today. I know we went a little bit over, so we appreciate that you were able to make the time. Just a quick reminder that we do have some more webinars coming up in this series. Next week, we'll be hosting Jan Hasbrook, who's going to be talking about dyslexia instruction. And then in May, we're going to be hosting a webinar about how knowledge building remains critical in middle school, and then another about how language screening helps you to build the foundations of literacy. I just dropped the link in the chat if you want to click through to find out some more. We also have plenty of on-demand webinars, including that other biliteracy panel I mentioned before. So please be sure to check that out and join us where you'd like to. Thank you all again so much for taking the time to join us on this spring afternoon. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care.
Thank you so much.